Welcome to the Talking Timelines podcast. We are four women with 4 points of view and four accents with one common goal: to share insights and information about what's going on in the world from a higher consciousness perspective. No BS, no PC, just lots of ideas that you won't hear on mainstream media. We chat, we laugh, and most of all, we shed and share light. Join us each week as we talk timelines.
Hello everyone, welcome to Talking Timelines episode 21, and today we're going to be talking about things around religion, the Bible, how women have been left out of it and that kind of thing. Basically, I've been listening to a lot of stuff, and the woman's done all the research. She's on IG and talking about the King James Bible and how that was put together by government officials in the 4th century, working with Emperor Constantine at the Council of Nicaea, where he brought a lot of bishops together, and they basically decided what was going to go into the Bible and what was not going to go into the Bible. And certain things were left out. The Gospel of Thomas was left out, which I know you can find online these days, about the kingdom of heaven is within us. And in other words, we have to be it to project it into our reality. It was all left out about Mary Magdalene, who was actually above the disciples. She was the disciple to the disciples. And Mother Mary was supposed to have been one of the disciples as well. So there should have been 14. And in her teachings, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene was actually left out as well, which has come to fruition now. And that was meant to be put in before World War One, and then World War One stopped it. Something else happened, and it was stopped. And apparently in her version, it says that there's no such thing as sin. And if you look up the original meaning of sin, it means to make a mistake. But this imprint that is imprinted into religious society about original sin, that, we've all carry this original sin. It's a mark. It's like a spell, is the way I see it in our consciousness. But apparently, and this is interesting, in 1969, the Vatican admitted that Mary Magdalene was the apostle to the apostles, but it's never actually been put back into the Bible. So it was admitted by the Vatican. So with the things that were left out were the power of our intuition, what the divine feminine is, what sovereignty is, our true sovereignty, that obviously about the original sin, and things were printed in it that if God tells you to go and divide and conquer and go and steal land from people and so on, as long as God said it's okay to do it. So that's the stuff that was put in there, that it's okay to just go and rape or pillage and do whatever was put in there. By the way, she said she's done all the research to this as well, and I've clicked on and checked some of her research. She also says that the word Lord is used 6,000 times in the Bible, and apparently it's not referring to the Creator. The word Lord refers to emperor, slave owners, and I've heard other people, when I've studied what's going on in that satanic Hollywood stuff, Lord is the name that they give to Satan as well.
Wow.
So it's interesting. So basically, she's saying this book is not spiritual guidance; it's a political agenda and a control thing. Not my words, guys. But this is one of the timelines that we're talking about. The other thing that's come up is there was no reference to homosexuality in the Bible until 1946, which is interesting. And apparently it was not frowned upon back in the day. We've all heard stories about the orgies in Greece and stuff like that, they were into all that kind of stuff, and bisexuality was considered normal as long as there was, love involved in it. And how King James, who was King James VI of Scotland, became King James I of England. His mother, Mary Queen of Scots, and I didn't know this because I didn't like this stuff when I was at school and took no notice of history and dumped it as soon as I could, for obvious reasons, realising it was programming. His mother, Mary Queen of Scots, was killed under the orders of Queen Elizabeth I. So he grew up with an issue around women, powerful women, who killed a powerful woman killed his mother. And apparently he wrote the King James Bible. We've all heard of it. And he also went out to sea and there was a great storm and he blamed it on demons and witches. The word witch actually meant wise one. And I've also read somewhere the word cunt also means wise one. And it was flipped and turned into the meaning of heretic and someone in league with the devil. And that was done by King James as well, who wrote the Bible, that Bible. There
Got a
are,
different usage today.
yeah, absolutely. Billions of copies of this book are out in the world, and it's all predictive programming, which, you know, me and the predictive programming are. My goal is with this podcast that people understand everything they're putting into their consciousness creates their reality. All of these books are creating their reality. That being said, it brings us back to the negative aspect of this stuff and what it's actually creating in the world. Demonology, good and evil, God and the devil. And then we've got this, you know, all this so-called conspiracy stuff about child trafficking and satanic Hollywood and everything else that's out there, that if this wasn't in the book, then maybe that wouldn't exist at all. If we didn't have these books that promote light and dark and good and evil, would that disappear in our reality? I'm going to pass this over to Laura first. What do you think about it, Laura?
It's really interesting. What I found, what really stood out to me, I never knew the definition of the word sin. It's really interesting. It's one of those things that you just wouldn't think to look up. A mistake is like, how did that get to be sin being such this powerful word that people are in such fear of, or he died for your sins? There's so much energy around it, and all that it means is a mistake.
Yes.
I mean, that it just goes to show you just how people take for granted. They're programmed to believe something without actually even looking and seeing the origin of certain words, or yeah, the other word you said. But that happens across the board, and it happens with
Yeah.
ideologies, and it happens like all the things that you share. People just, you don't question things. There are people that do question. There are children that question, there are adults that question, there are people that just naturally, they just they have a feeling or they're really curious about it. But the majority of people take what they've been spoon-fed. And like you said, that's they're creating this. They're creating for the collective, they're creating for their lives.
Yeah.
And we can't stress this enough. That's why I think in every single episode we talk about this.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's important. You know, my goal of bringing you guys together with me on this podcast was to help educate people, to at least get them to think
Mm.
about, you know, what they're doing. I was talking to somebody at lunch the other day about the COVID stuff, and he mentioned the word conspiracy theorists believe, you know, we're trying to be murdered and all this stuff. I don't really think that they're trying to kill us. That, you know, is a bit extreme. I do think that it's about healthcare and sick care, you know, about keeping people sick and keep the business rolling for that system. Because if it killed us all off, there's no money coming in. So, you know, why would they want to kill us all off? And I said to him, the information that I got at the time was the vaccine was patented 5 years before the disease existed.
Mhm.
You know, just think about that for a minute. If, you know, if people are saying this was a pandemic, the so-called solution, air quotes, was created and patented 5 years before the disease ever existed. So if people are not prepared to think about that, and even when I say it to people, I can still see the cognitive dissonance there. It's like
Mhm.
they do not want to believe they were wrong. This week, changing the subject slightly, my friend who's been a doctor for 51 years, he's retired now, good friend of mine, sent me a video of two doctors in the UK that are now actually verbally apologising to the public for giving people vaccines and actually stating
Wow.
that they believe all vaccines, all vaccines are a danger to humanity. Two medical doctors in the UK. It's been printed in the Telegraph newspaper online, which is a big broadsheet. It's not a tabloid junky newspaper. This is, you know, it's an important newspaper in the UK that actually is saying that it's the results of the COVID-19 vaccine are catastrophic to the health of the people that have had them. So the information is coming out there. There's another doctor, I can't remember her name, I think it might be Suzanne Humphreys, who is also speaking up. She was on Joe Rogan saying that the polio vaccine, because whenever you mention this to people, they always go, but what about polio? That's the
Exactly.
You know, even I was naive enough to think that you know, that actually worked. But what she says is the research she found, let's say there's 4 symptoms and that's what your diagnosis is of polio. What they did is they changed the symptoms. So now you've got these other symptoms. If you haven't got these other symptoms, you haven't got the disease. So they didn't heal the disease with the vaccine. In fact, somebody told me who has done their research as well, that it was actually giving people polio, giving the children polio. They never cured the disease. They just changed the symptoms of the disease. So if you didn't have those symptoms, you didn't go down as having the disease. So, you know, there's a lot of skullduggery, as we say in England, going on here. And people need to be aware of it. And that's what this show is about. So all of this stuff is now coming out. The information is coming out. Like I said, the Vatican have spoken up as well, going back to what we were talking about, that Mary Magdalene, you know, was a very important part of the Bible and the divine feminine. Personally, I think it's very cleverly written, and there's a lot of good information in there about being a good person and, you know, loving your neighbour as yourself and all this other stuff. It has to be believable, but it's never resonated with me at all. And I have friends that gave me a copy of the Quran years ago that was in English as well, so that I could read it. And in there, I remember the page I did read, I opened it one day and read a page that said that it's okay for a Muslim man to sleep with his wife and his right hand. Well, to me, I was like, what does that mean? Well, I was lucky enough to have a couple of, not literally, guys, a couple of Muslim friends, and I asked them, and they said in their culture, the right hand is your servant. So in their Bible, in the Quran, it says that it's okay for a man to sleep with his wife and all of his servants. Now, to me, that just doesn't feel godly, you know. So
do you know what it is? It's make it up as you go, and
yeah,
right. And this
Or
thing
make up
about
what serves you.
you know, in their world, and make up what, you know, serves you. And like what Laura had said before, like sin, you know, is a mistake, and that just goes to show an example of the number of programs that are out there. And really, it's when it comes to awareness and discernment, it's like, hey, wait a second here. You know, like it is like make it up as you go. And I think that what we choose to focus on, or you know, study, or whatever is going to fill our day, is something that we project. So if we're focused on, you know, these wars that are happening, you know, there's going to be you know, a certain type of energy that we are going to emit, and probably attract more of that. If we're focused on, okay, my business, and also what can I do for other people today, you know, whatever that is, then you're going to get more of it. So it's just that projection. But again, it's all based on the programs. And for people who, like Janine, you had mentioned about cognitive dissonance, and you can see it from people. Every time that we talk with people, whether it's at the coffee shop, or it's, you know, someone that is in business, or on the phone, or social media, we find out just from those conversations what their beliefs are and their programs are. And I'm more aware myself of my programs too. So now I just like, okay, every morning it's a clean slate, and, you know, this is what I'm allowing in. And yeah, so that person can have that belief. They can even bring all the evidence too. But how does it pertain to my life? Okay, I'll just I'll put it in that file right here, and put it in that shelf. But I'm not going to be like, I'm not going to have to react to it. And I just think that we got a lot of that out there now, is reactive. people, right?
Yeah. And the programming that goes in there is it's so deep and it's so forceful as well. It's ingrained, but it needs to come out. If you're on that timeline, people at home, if you're on that timeline where you've been brought up with that, even if you've moved away from it now, and a lot of my Christian friends have done that, they don't go to church anymore, and they're beginning to realize and question. And by the way, I've got Christian friends, Catholic friends, Protestant friends, Muslim friends, Jewish friends. I don't like take on board people's religion. I take on board what's in their heart and how they treat me. That's it. I don't care what color they are, what they've done in the past. It's not important. There's this moment and how we are with one another now that counts. But that deep programming is projecting the good and evil into reality, the duality consciousness that we're all subjected to because of the mass consciousness. So it's what the masses believe in, and that's why there's all these 5,000 different Christian churches all over America, for example. It's about the keeping control of the mass consciousness, because that's what's projecting into reality. But as we're leveling up now and taking these belief systems out of our system, I knew this wasn't right when I was 13 years old. That was the last time I went to church willingly with my dad, and on the way home I said, I'm not going anymore. And my dad said, why? And I said, well, it just doesn't feel right. You go in and you're told you're a sinner, and I've been a good girl this week. I haven't done anything. I had to go to church 3 times a week when I was a kid. I went to a school that was run by nuns, all girls school. It was pumped into me. By the age of 13, I was like, no, this isn't right. I'm not having it anymore. My dad said, okay. And as long as you're happy with your choice, I said, well, if God is real, then he's going to forgive me. That's the one good bit I took out of it for not turning up on a Sunday and being told I'm a sinner and coming out of there feeling bad when I've had a good week. Even as a child, I found it a depressing place to be. Yeah. Apart from when I sang in the choir, because I liked being in the choir, that was good fun. But all of it is a projection. All of it is controlling people's reality. And it's divide and conquer. That's why there's all these different religions, keeping people separate again. And then within the religions, you've got the separation of the male and female, the patriarchal society, that men are more important than women. And it's still happening today. There's still dreadful stuff happening to women. If you go into certain cultures and, things like female genital mutilation as well, where there are cultures where women in the family hold down 7-year-old, 8-year-old girls and cut without anesthetic their clitoris off and sew up their labia so that they can't masturbate, so that they can't have sex until they're married and any self-pleasure. This is still happening in our society. I wrote to to number 10 Downing Street when I was 18 years old, saying that they needed to do something about it, because it was happening in the UK when I was 18 years old, and now 60, and I know it's still going on. Things like this are happening in our culture. Why are they happening in our culture? One, because it's ingrained into people's DNA, religious belief systems. When if you read books outside of religion that talk about, certainly masturbation for the youth is a stress relief action. There's a button there to release stress from the system. Grounding people as well is another thing. So there's all these different ways that that kind of thing is being interfered with in the name of religion for people.
I remember. No, finish. Go ahead.
Go on.
No, I remember something kind of similar. So I was brought up Jewish, even though my parents never believed in God. It was more of a, this is what you do kind of thing. So I went to Hebrew school, and we actually belonged to an Orthodox synagogue because the rabbi was actually young and progressive. My parents liked him. So I had to go to Hebrew school, even though I never really resonated with any of it. And I remember at a very young age, thinking it was very odd that you were told what to believe. Because to me, belief is a choice. You believe something that feels right to you. This is a very young age. And I thought, how can they tell you what to believe? How can they tell you this is your religion or this is your God or and it never sat right with now I understand it, but then I just thought, why doesn't anyone think this is weird that you're told what to believe? Now, of
Yeah.
course, it happens in all areas of our lives. It's not just religion, but that's one of the areas that people you're born into this. This is what you believe.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I had a really hard time with it, and I never, a lot of my friends were Jewish. I grew up in a Jewish area, but never kind of felt drawn to it as a religion. I always knew spiritually I was connected to something, but it was never attached to a religion. And I think a lot of people feel that way, but maybe not vocalize it for out of fear or out
Mm-hmm.
of belonging. They need to belong to something. So it's probably a lot more common than we would think.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I mean, you talk about belief, we're being told what to believe. A belief is a program
It's a,
that's been, indoctrinated into your subconscious through repetition. And it doesn't take long, 21 days and it's in, guys.
yeah.
And as far as the other stuff on screens that I've talked about before, about the energy coming out of screens, you're talking 3 seconds there, name it, and you've attached to it in the matrix. So the beliefs are programmed in, but we've got something called knowing, all knowing. We've got innate knowing, and there's a big difference in it. And when it's whether somebody tells you something and expects you to believe it, and you go, well, people need to question what I'm feeling. Is this a belief or is it a knowing? And most people go with the beliefs. It's like, this is what I've been taught, this is what is right because somebody I respected or a teacher or parents or whatever told me this, the priest, who was so important in all of these things. We don't need to go into the paedophilia aspect of that. There's a movie called Spotlight, which explained what happened in New York. 1,500 paedophile priests in New York were shipped out to other parishes. That is a factual, true story. And that's just one city. That was an old movie. That we need to be learning to meditate so we can tap into our knowing and our, the feeling what is the truth and what is not the truth in that respect, instead of belief. People,
Yeah, it was a knowing in my sense. I guess I use the word belief because that's usually what's associated with religion. Like, do you believe in God? And this is what I believe as a blah blah blah. So that word is actually thrown around, which is kind of interesting because it is programming, and
yeah.
people think it's programming. They do think it's a choice. So it's really more of, yeah, it was a knowing, but it was more like, okay, how are people told what to believe? But then that they're programmed to believe that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the difference as well. And this is what, when I say to people about every hair on your body is an antennae to your feelings, to it's like picking up on what's in your energy field, what's in your, biogenetic sheath, what's in your aura, call it what you will. And we're taught to shave the hair off our bodies as well, which is damaging our intuition. Most of this body shaving and all this stuff, where does it come from? It comes from porn films, guys. Why are we being, encouraged by society to shave all our body hair off? Because that's what's in porn films. Just think about it. It's
Mm.
Hey,
like, where
hey, if
where does
it's
this influence come from?
if it's from porn films or whatever, hey, I don't care. I like my body shaven. I don't like too much hair under. I don't want any hair under my arms. I don't, and I know there's going to be people that are going to listen to this that will agree with me. And I think that each to their own. Whatever blows their hair back. And I like shaving my legs. I don't like hair sticking out there, especially when I'm wearing shorts or whatever. So, but each to their own, right?
I guess it makes a difference what colour your hair is as well. It stands out more if your hair's darker. Mine doesn't. I've got blonde hair on my body, so I'm not judging people. I'm just saying it
Speaking
affects
of
our
the,
intuition.
speaking of the whole programming
Yeah.
thing, I mean, it's a little off topic, but it's always related. So I work part-time at this wellness place where I do my services and I help them out. And I'm very much in the world of the state of the art wellness. And I'm doing using air quotes because so much of it is what this biohacking thing. And to me, it's gone so far that now there's something wrong with our bodies about aging, about natural healing and the abilities and using nature and it's gone so far and it's being pushed out so much that we need to have this technology because our bodies are flawed or because our bodies are going to break down and all these things. And people are now obsessed with these things. So that's a new programming that they're seeing as, oh, it's positive technology. And oh, wasn't this all wonderful? And I'm just observing and I see it as, wow, this is just another area that now we're obsessed with. And people think if they don't keep up with this thing, oh, they're going to start looking old. All these things are going to happen. And it's just another area, this whole
Yeah.
biohacking health stuff, which is, I think really can be really, really detrimental.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with you. I think, I'm not a big one for supplements and stuff like that. I eat, good quality food as often as I can and drink plenty of water with a bit of salt in it, sea salt. And I think, like you, we're being hoodwinked into we need this technology. More technology is going to make you better and stuff like that. When really you can actually do a lot just sitting in the sun.
Yes, yes, they're mimicking what nature gives us. Cold plunging, you go jump in a body of water.
Yeah,
Same thing with infrared sauna. That's the sun. You're getting that from the
yeah.
sun. All of these things are mimicking nature, but it's never, never going to work the same way. And a lot of them do have
Mm.
side effects. The length of time people doing it, or cold plunges is you're putting your body in flight or fright, and flight or fight, not fright. It could be fright too.
But yeah,
Right.
fight, fight, flight, or freeze, isn't
I
it?
know it's hard to, and then there's another one too, or I forgot what the other one is, but yeah, that's the thing, and it's making these people like I feel for them because they're also coming in. They've had a lot of plastic surgery, and they're doing this and they're doing that, and they're just like they're almost not even human anymore. It's like I want to tell
Hmm.
people it's okay, it's okay. You're not
Hmm.
supposed to be this robotic thing. To me, it goes along perfectly with AI because it's almost like what they're trying to do with their bodies is exactly what's kind of, going on with their brain too.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. And what they don't realise is, and I've done this because a couple of years ago I did a lot of the cold shower things,
Hmm.
which is like cold plunging, but I was doing in a day, some days, because I was really leveling up. I did like 5-10 minute cold showers, and it's a lot. You build up to it
That
because
is a
it's a
lot.
shock. Yeah, it's a shock to your system. But what happens when you're jumping in this cold plunging stuff is it's a shock. Your body is
Mm,
shocked. That shock is stored in your cell memory. You can have soul fragments as a part of it. So if you keep doing it, you could end up with PTSD because you keep fragmenting a piece of your energetic body jumps out of you when you have shock. That's what is very linked into PTSD and the trauma of that. So people that are doing this over and over and over again and not pulling their energy field back in and
mm,
healing it afterwards and taking that shock out of their system are doing themselves harm
mm.
energetically. They're actually harming themselves. I remember someone I know was going for that cold plunge stuff, and it's not cheap. And I meditated on it and got told stay well away from it. It's damaging. It damages the cells. So
Your body doesn't know. Your body's just reacting to it. Your body doesn't know you're getting out in 2 minutes. Your body probably thinks it's freezing to death.
yeah,
So it is. It's stressful in the body. And I know about hormesis. I know, what doesn't kill you doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And there is something to be said for that. But the way people are going about doing it is it's just it's another obsession. It's another thing that now they're obsessed with health
yeah,
in a way that, they're so afraid to eat this thing. They're afraid to, and again, it's just instilling more fear and also taking all pleasure out of life because there has to be a balance.
yeah.
I mean, that's why we're here.
Yeah, there does need to be a balance. This is the thing that I've only just found out about it this week is because it popped up about Ozzy Osbourne passing away a couple of weeks ago, and I've seen Sharon Osbourne pop up on my feed, and I was like, wow, she looks really poorly.
Mm.
I know she's just lost her husband, but then I've seen an interview.
Ozempic.
Yeah,
Ozempic.
Ozempic. Yeah, she was taking that. Well, I didn't know anything about it, and apparently it's a weight loss drug. And a lot of people have been taking it, but what they don't tell you is you don't just lose fat, you lose muscle, and it doesn't come back. You can't put weight on again.
I know.
So she looks really drawn, her cheeks have sunken in, she looks really poorly now. And she was being interviewed about it. So, you know, this kind of thing, all in the name of beauty and trying to maintain our youth and the pressure that's being put on, you know, women. I mean, she's a good example because she's a tough cookie. You wouldn't want to mess with Sharon. You know, she's strong. She's a businesswoman. She's a mother. She's a grandmother of 10 children, I think, now. And even she felt the pressure to go and do that to herself in her 60s, or, you know, how old she is now.
Oprah as well. She did this, she did it as well. And who was the other one? Yeah, so and people talk about it, and then there's, of course, with the drugs, there's always the side effects. And so I've got a friend that she lost quite a bit of weight, and she admitted to me, and she wanted me to keep it quiet, that she took Ozempic. And so she continues, she goes to a lot of Pilates classes and things like that. And I saw her before picture because I didn't know her when she was bigger. But like literally when we go out for lunch or brunch with our, you know, significant others, she's just eating no more than a bowl of soup.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, and if you go over, then you're going to get sick. But also another thing is what they're finding is people that, and really quick, because this call's not really necessarily about Ozempic, but they're having issues with their thyroid and also gut or gastrointestinal issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I heard it's actually irreversible. Like the damages they're doing,
Yeah.
that very long-term serious effects. And um, yeah, it's all part of the same thing. And people just say, oh, great, I can take this drug. It's created for diabetics for a reason. And people just seem to push that aside and saying, great, I can finally have something that's going to help me lose the weight and I don't have to do anything. That's another thing is we want to outsource everything.
Yeah, they did the same thing with that cancer drug when they started selling it to people for migraines as well, and it caused a lot of problems. Um, you know, so people need to be very careful about what they're putting into their bodies. And I don't think it's difficult to look after you know, yourself. You know, we're all in our 50s or 60 years old, and we're all in good shape.
Wait, wait, no, I wonder, because as you were talking, I wonder when, but it's probably when the medical industry, like I don't know, when the American Medical, I don't know when those things were founded, but I was just thinking about when did we become disempowered about our abilities to heal ourselves? There must have been, because you know that there used to be, there were ceremonies, there were remedies, natural remedies where they would go pull some herbs and they would do things, and it was known. There was like the medicine doctor, I don't know, or the woman, the healer, and they didn't have these high level technologies. Now, granted, I'm sure someone can say that, okay, they probably didn't have a longer lifespan and so forth. And yes, modern medicine is very valuable. The thing is that there must have been a period, and maybe it is the rise of Western medicine, I don't know, when it was you need to go see a professional to be told what's wrong with you, and then take the power away from you and your ability, not just to work with a healer, but even on your own. I mean, I first say, okay, I know I can heal myself. And obviously, there are times when you do need, whether it's a holistic practitioner or whatever. But I first say, okay, I know my body. I very strongly know that my body has the ability to heal itself if I give it that, if I remember and I give
Hmm.
it what it needs to do that. The last thing I'm going to do is go to a doctor and say, this. I mean, obviously, there are times when you need to, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's when the rise of Western medicine?
Yeah. I do. I remember watching it was a movie like The Secret, but it was called What If, and I haven't been able to find the DVD again. I lent it to somebody and they didn't give it back to me. And in that, it said that 100 years ago, so this was probably 10, 15 years ago, I had this video. 100 years ago, that there was either 7 or 10 recorded diseases, and it was either 7 or 10, the other way around, flower remedies to heal those diseases, right? So we're talking 7 and 10, or 10 and 7. I can't remember exactly. Now, there are 100,000 recorded diseases and 500,000 chemical drugs to treat those 100,000 diseases in
So
a
it was
hundred
the
years.
rise of pharmaceuticals, the medical industry and pharmaceuticals is what
Yeah.
basically disempowered humans, and that
Yeah.
you are, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that the pharmaceutical, drugs, medicines, and whatever were left over. They're leftovers from the petrochemical industry. They're like, what can we do with this? I know.
Byproduct.
Yeah, it's a byproduct. It's basically trash that they've turned into a medicine.
Exactly. Well, Janine, a few minutes ago, you had mentioned about how with polio, how they changed the symptoms, right?
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing what we experienced 5 years ago in 2020, when we all knew for many years about the flu. And now you don't have anybody contracting the flu or getting, bogged down by the flu. It's COVID. Everything's COVID. And so again, and then who's buying into that? So prior to COVID, I want to ask everybody that's listening to this, or going to listen to this, is what did you buy into for all these years? Because now that all this stuff's coming out, now that we're enhancing our awareness, now that we're waking up, what else did we buy into all these years? Because it seems like everything, well, as we know, is an indoctrination or a program. And so I think once we're aware of all that is, and I think that if we go through our day, we'll realize exactly what is. Like breakfast, for example. You wake up and you have breakfast. Well, who says that you have to have breakfast, right? So some people do better when they have brunch or lunch at between 11 and 1. And so, but then otherwise, it's just that was a way for people to go out and then push buying cereal and, all those breakfast products, Weetabix and, Fruit Loops and all that, right? Poison.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember watching a documentary years ago about Buddhist monks. They eat at 11 o'clock in the morning. So it's brunch time once a day. And that's it. So they have a big feast once a day, which if you listen to people like Barbara O'Neill, she talks about eat like a king or a queen for breakfast, and then a lighter lunch and then a pauper in the evening.
Yes.
So eating less in the evening. Right. So just jumping back onto when you mentioned about flu, because this is the biggie. This is a book called The Contagion Myth, written by Thomas S. Cowan, MD, and Sally Fallon Morell. And it came out the first year of COVID. And in here they talk about, since electricity was created in 1875, that's when flu started. We didn't have any flu before that, right? So your body's an electrical field. So if you've got electrical currents running around, the building you're in, it's going to affect your electrical field. That makes sense. So that's what your nose running, your body going into high temperature. Is it trying to, expel this? And Robert Kennedy was online the other day talking about how 5G goes through the blood-brain barrier and is affecting the brain as well, which is important because we've got 6G coming out now, which is going to be even worse, apparently. In 1889 to 1894, there was more electricity and more flu, and there was a flu pandemic then, right? So then we go into 1918, Spanish flu killed 50 billion people, and that was after the governments introduced radio signals globally. So that was when radio was created. And then we go into the years after that. 1957, radar was created, and we had the Asian flu. All right, 1968 in the US, 28 satellites. There's now 7,500 satellites out there in space, by the way, into the Van Allen belt. And then we had the Hong Kong flu, 1968. So, and then we moved into 2019, 5G. Hey presto, year later, COVID, right? So it's all logged. Oh, in 1996, cell phones came out. So, that was causing problems as well. There were outbreaks like SARS and MERS. And at the time, if you'd looked up SARS-2 in a medical dictionary, it actually said common cold, but no one looked it up.
Yeah.
What I find so interesting now is that, it's 5 years later, and, whatever may still be around is definitely not causing what it did when it first came out. And yet I just heard someone the other day saying, oh, go get, not me, but someone saying to someone else, oh, you should go get tested for COVID. And I say to myself, what difference does it make? First of all, secondly, you get tested. What are you going to do? You're still going to do the same thing. If you're sick, you're going to stay home and not be around people. But for some reason, there's still, and that's how deep this, oh my God, the fear of it's COVID, like I have this thing and it still has the potential to kill me. That's what the message was. So because now people are like, oh my God, I've had it 3 times. And yes, oh my God, I hope you get well. So there's still this drama around it. And meanwhile, it's not even now, it's like a mild flu. It's not even, people are still obsessed with it. Is it COVID or it's a cold? Who cares?
Exactly.
Yeah, I know, but and it's just like, okay, those people aren't getting invited to events because, they got COVID. And it's like, whenever I hear that, I'm like, do people still believe in that? They still believe that
they
lie,
They still
they think
believe
it's gonna
it.
come and get you. Like they think it's like, oh my God, you have it. It's gonna.
Okay, so in this book, it talks very distinctly about talking about COVID again. Koch's postulates are for bacteria, and Rivers' postulates are for viruses. So basically, these are like there's certain things that the category that defines a bacteria and a virus, right? So Koch's postulates are for a bacteria. So Rivers' postulates would be the one linked to COVID. So basically, there are 6 things that it needs to come under to be considered a virus, and COVID didn't come under those. So it didn't comply with Rivers' postulates, which means it's not a virus. Okay, and it's all in this book. It's really interesting. I won't go into any more of it, but like you said, there's so many people now. If you sniff or you blow your nose or something like that, or you've got a bit of a runny nose because your body's naturally detoxing, then people go, oh God, you've got COVID. Like I notice where certain places, like I'm living a bit more on the outskirts now, and there's more land around the house. So if I'm in a place where there's lots and lots of Wi-Fi, my nose starts to run. So my body is detoxing constantly. And then where I am now, there's not a lot of Wi-Fi. So I'm not having that problem anymore. But I do notice it. If I'm in an airport, my nose is dripping because it's just bombarded with Wi-Fi from everywhere in there. Okay. I don't know if anyone else notices a response to it, but I do. I can pick up on it.
That doesn't happen to me, but I know that when I'm in certain crowds, when I'm in certain crowds, I'll notice that I feel I got to get out of there.
What were you going to say, Laura?
No, I was going to say, so I had some around Christmas this past year. I had some, I'm guessing there's a virus. I don't know what it was. I get maybe once every other year, I'll get a cold for 24 hours or 2 days, and I feel like my body detoxing. And it was kind of very, very bizarre symptoms for 4 days, like low grade fever, like not more than 100, but just like exhaustion. And it was like one night I had like overnight horrible sore throat, then it was gone. But something that was really interesting was that, and I've never had this in my entire life, is I lost my sense of smell. Now, I have very, very sensitive, all my senses are like my hearing is like bionic. My sense of smell is, so to me, that was the most disturbing thing because, oh no, I can't lose my sense of smell. So, and I mentioned it to my sister and she said, COVID, because you remember that was one of the symptoms. And I'm like, no, it's not COVID. First of all, I don't have a cough. COVID was all about the respiratory. I said, no, it's not COVID. I actually researched it. It's very, very common with a cold and a flu to lose your sense of smell with a virus temporarily, and they gave you actually some ways to get it back. I did that, and 2 days later, complete full sense of smell back. But it was so interesting how people are like, oh, sense of smell, it's COVID. She's got, no, I don't have COVID. But it was, because that was one of the things. There were certain things that people said, their sense of taste and smell, and it was just this like it was like the plague. It really was like the plague. And the first thing I want to do is do my own research. And I never knew that it was actually common to lose the sense of smell. I never knew
No.
that. And they tell you how to get it back. They tell you things that you can do and
What can you
smell
get
things
it to
like,
do?
yeah, you take things like peppermint or menthol, like those kind of things, and you smell them. You smell them. You don't really smell it. You feel the sensation of whether it's the menthol, whatever, initially, and you do it enough. And there were a couple of other things which I can't remember right now. I mean, I was doing all these other things with my immune system anyway, but I kept taking peppermint. There was something else.
Was it rosemary?
No, definitely peppermint was one of them. There was something also very strong, and I would feel the sensation of it, and then it went slow. Certain things you can smell, very, very faint, and then within 2 days it fully came back. But I was very concerned that because there are some times where people don't get it back, some fluky thing, just like whatever. But I said, I can't lose my sense of smell. It's like,
Laura, same thing happened to me. Same thing happened to me in early 2020, and I lost my smell. And of course, you lose your taste as well because they're a lot of times they're connected. And so it was just so strange to not be able to taste your food. So for me, it lasted about 3, 4 months,
wow.
and then it just came back.
Interesting. Very interesting stuff. So yeah, once a year, once every other year, maybe once every 5 years is probably for flu is probably normal for most people. Just, just a general detox. It's your body detoxing. That's it.
It
And
actually happened the day after I got body work done. I had a massage, a very deep, there were certain things, and it's funny because it's a friend of mine, and she said a lot of it triggers, it helps you detox. And it's very common actually to get sick when you get that kind of work because you have anything that's suppressed in the body, it's going to come out. So she felt so bad. She's like, oh my God, I'm sure there's a connection.
Mm.
And yeah, it was literally the next day I started having symptoms. So there's
yeah,
probably a pretty good chance that whatever has been, especially if you haven't had, and I hadn't had body work in a while, it's stuck there and you're releasing it and it has to come out some way. That's why I thought I had these odd symptoms and I just low grade fever. I was just exhausted pretty much. And I just let my body do what it needed to do. I knew how to take care of it. And it's interesting, very
and
interesting.
your lungs, which were, at the center of all of this so-called illness, the cell memory holds on to your life experiences. So a lot of it's trauma being released from the cells in that area of the body. Would you think your lungs are next to your heart? So heartache is going to be affecting that energy center in the body, in that area of the body, and it gets tight when there's pain in there
Mm.
and the grief and things that are not dealt with. And when the planets are in alignment, like we've just gone through the 8-8 portal recently, and that was really knocking us about. So like the Hertz resonance was super high, and that energy is coming into a body and trying to push this old stuff out. And it can make you feel aches, pains, flu symptoms, and stuff like that as your body's trying to release. I had a good friend of mine call me last week. Oh, she's in her late 70s now. She's a psychotherapist. And she sent me a text message saying, will you have a look at my heart? Because I've got pain in my heart and down my left arm and I don't want to go to the doctors. I don't trust them. So I said, yeah, okay. So I called her, we did a session, had a look. What was going on was there was a patch of grief energy trying to escape from her heart. On an energetic level, from a previous life, there was a cut, like her arm was a half cut off, her elbow was half cut off, and her wrist was half cut off. So they looked like she'd been in a war in another lifetime. And I said, so this is what I can see clairvoyantly. It's like your arms hanging off, your elbows like been chopped half off, and so is your wrist. And she says that's where all the pain is. So, in the joint, in the wrist, and in the elbow. When I cleared that energy, that memory, which is her body was bringing up to be released out, The pain was completely gone. She didn't need to go to the doctors.
Yeah.
So people
Wow.
need to realize that sometimes your body is releasing stuff from your past that you think you're sick, and you're not. It's just your body trying to let go of stuff. You know, not saying don't go to the doctors, guys, because, you know, there's a disclaimer at the end of this show. There always is. You know, be wise with your decisions. But sometimes it's worth going to see a healer as well and just get some insight if there is anything from the past trying to be released from your body. And your lungs are about your life. They hold a lot. Everything you've breathed in, every experience you've breathed in, everyone you've been hanging out with, every place you've ever been, you've breathed that into your lungs. And the energy of wherever you've been leaves an imprint, it leaves a memory. So people need to be, you know, to be aware of that as well, because it does make you look at things differently.
Yeah, I'm reading about this technology. I don't want to get into this whole thing about what it is, but maybe another episode we can talk about it. But I'm reading about this new kind of, no, it's not new, but it's new to me, this healing technique. And they talk about, and it was created by a chiropractor, and he talks about what traditional medicine does, right? You go to a doctor, and he was saying his experience as a chiropractor is that you go in and they say, "What's wrong with you?" So now listen to this train of thought. It's very interesting. So you're coming in and you're telling them your symptoms, and that's what they're focusing on. And they look at,
Yeah,
okay, we got to fix the knee, we got to fix this. That's the focus, that's the energy, that's what the problem is. They're not looking into the body, so they're not going to see where trauma might be stored. They're not going to be seeing the whole picture. And just like the way it was explained, I thought it was so fascinating because we don't see anything wrong with that. Well, I'm going to a doctor, they're going to ask what's wrong instead of saying, what's going on in your life? How's your
mm-hmm.
relationships? How's your, how's your overall state of well-being? How's your work go? Then you get a full picture and you can, I mean, that's kind of what I do in my work is I kind of find out what's the backstory before someone's telling me, why they're coming to me. But they don't do that. It's just, okay, you're here. Most people want a prescription. Oh, they're happy. They leave with a prescription. I got my
Yeah,
cure. And then that's it. And it's just, I look forward to the day when we go back to a more holistic approach where they look at the whole individual to treat something. Because many times medication is the last thing that's needed. You don't need another antidepressant. You don't need, another mood elevate, whatever they're giving you. Your body's speaking to you. And if you're
yeah.
suppressing symptoms like that, it's going to manifest some other way.
Yeah, one of the biggest problems out there at the moment is anxiety and depression, and especially in the younger people, and they're getting given drugs that the doctors don't know how to wean you off. And I've been looking in research in this. There's a doctor down in America that will wean you off anxiety pills, but it's going to cost you between 35 and 55,000 Canadian dollars over an 18-month, 2-year period to do that. I can't get my head around how a doctor can prescribe you a drug that basically they know this is for life because they can't wean you off it. I remember watching I love documentaries. I was watching a
We
documentary
haven't noticed, Janine.
Yeah.
about, I'm always looking for the information
Right.
about, he was a chemist and he was put on these drugs. And he was saying you can't just wean off from 2 milligrams to 1.75 because that 0.25 has a massive effect on your body. And he was measuring 1/100th of a milligram each time with and giving himself 1/100th less to try and wean himself off these drugs because he knew the dangers of them. So this needs to be put right. This needs to be something that people should be bringing to Robert Kennedy to do something about. These
Yeah.
doctors need to be paying for the people that they've given this drug to. They need to be paying $30, $40, $50,000 to put them right because they prescribed it and they've sworn an oath to do no harm, but they're doing harm.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
I know they
but
don't
you know
mean
also,
it, but they some of them do know what's going on and they're still doing it.
yeah, but
That's the
okay, so
problem.
here's also a great proactive approach is that, if we're going through tough times in life, if you're going to take and accept a prescription, any type of script from a doctor, like, then you have to, if you're not asking what the side effects are, and if you're not asking that if I have to come off this someday,
Exactly.
what's the ramification? So we have to start we have to start being responsible and accountable because Janine, you and I, we know someone right now that's going through very bad withdrawal. like very bad withdrawal,
Yeah.
like she's, in fact, at 1 o'clock today, she wanted me to go with her to her psychiatrist appointment with her. She asked me like 3 hours prior, and I just already had all my appointments in. I couldn't do it. So I helped her, I said, you have to write down everything that you're experiencing for symptoms, because you go in front of the psychiatrist and she forgets. She is in such a state of fight or flight that I've ever seen. And every day is a struggle. I'm asking what her coping mechanisms are. She doesn't even feel like doing any of that. I said, can you put something on and, dance? Like, just, you've got lots of energy inside you. You feel like there's a lot of electricity there, right? And so do we blame the doctors, or like, how far does that go? And when do we become accountable for like that we accept and consent to that being written for us?
It's okay saying, do we blame the doctors? I don't blame the doctors per se, because they're taught what they're taught. That, they're taught to, give people this drug for this symptom. But they do need to be held accountable for this kind of problem, because they swore an oath to do no harm. And look at the harm that is being done. And it's, well, we didn't know. That's it. We didn't know what was going on. We were just trying to help people. We're the good guys, just trying to help people. Well, they need to be made to do the research before they sign that script on how long, does this person need to be on this, and how do you get them off it? Because the person you're talking about, Lisa, went to the GP, and the GP said, I don't know how to get you off it. All right, so I think that's we'll end it there, because we could just chat all day about this. We'll talk about it another time. Okay, so thanks for joining me, guys, and have a great day. And we'll see you all again soon for Talking Timelines. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Disclaimer: the content in this podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only. The views, opinions, and information shared do not necessarily represent those of the hosts, but is provided for additional perspectives. None of the hosts are medical professionals, so we do not dispense medical advice. Please consult your healthcare professional for any health-related issues. And thank you for listening to Talking Timelines.